And it's so lovely to think about our annual theme, Igniting the Power Within. And it's a big, fiery theme, and it's like whoosh, right? And then we've been talking about Spark the Passion of Your Heart all month. And we're using our book, Heart Intelligence, and it's all about passion and power and all of those kinds of things. And then we have to breathe, don't we? Then we have to breathe. I don't know about you, sometimes it feels as though the world, both the world and my spirituality collude to invite me to have my foot on the gas pedal all the time. Right? Go for it, dream big, do your thing, live your life, all of those sorts of things. Certainly our spirituality invites us to do that, right? And for many of us, the world is more and more busy, complicated, traffic, email, all of the demands of life. And so we want to remind ourselves that there's a place where we can go within ourselves and find a way through some of that and perhaps even take it up differently. So, as we move into this conversation this morning, I want to address two really challenging issues that we tend to have in life. You might lean more on one side than the other, and that is stress and anxiety. Stress and anxiety. The stress of the demands of our life. Right? Stress tends to be the response to outer things. It's a response to the never-ending, constant need for movement, growth, activities, and it is the pressure that we feel from all of that. We call that stress. Tends to be more outwardly driven. On the other hand, anxiety tends to be more internally driven. Anxiety actually tends to be about our own internal fear, our uncertainty, our sense of loss of control, our lack of trust, you see, it's sort of, in both cases, there's a contracting, isn't there? And an elevation of energetic, right? I used to feel stress as a pressure right here in my heart space, literally discovering that I couldn't breathe. I did that for a number of years when my son was young and I was young in the ministry. Before that, rather than that external pressure of that, not being able to breathe, I had a whole year of dealing with panic attacks. Night after night after night after night, being woken up with that desperate fear that something terrible was going to happen, and ultimately that I was going to die from the heart beating and the chest pounding and the palms sweating and the inability to think straight. Yeah. And whether we have these experiences chronically or occasionally, one of the things that I experience is that these are some of the most common prayer requests that we have. And our culture today seems to thrive on creating these things. But my experience is also that we have tools to practice and a philosophy of life that can absolutely and utterly relieve these two completely. That these two things can be completely washed out of our life experience, or at least brought down to such a degree that it doesn't overwhelm us anymore. So I want to talk about that today, 10 ways to reduce stress and anxiety. If you are a note taker, if you're watching this at home, you can get your notes taken out, because I'm going to give you 10 ways to reduce stress and anxiety. Some of these you might already do. You don't need to do all 10, although they are all helpful. I've practiced all 10 of them in my life and on a regular basis. The thing to do is not to stress yourself out about doing all 10 and becoming anxious as to whether you're doing them right. This would defeat the purpose, right? So we're gonna talk about these, and then you're gonna see which resonates with you, and you think, oh man, I need more of that in my life. Boom, right there. You know the place to start. So this is not a checklist, another checklist of things you have to do, right? But it is an opportunity for us to really explore the spiritual tools and the philosophy upon which we stand that can utterly abolish these things from our life. And speaking as someone who has lived with panic attacks and lived with that stress, that pressure in my chest that I could hardly stand, I stand here today to tell you that, yeah, I don't really have a lot of that in my life anymore. And I know that there are many of you who have walked that walk yourself. So let's remember together, maybe there's something here that you know and that you've forgotten that you want to add back into your life. So, who can tell me what number 1 is?
Meditation.
Breathe. 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 So, statistically, in the United States, 80% of Americans breathe too shallowly. They breathe in their chest. 2 reasons for that. One is the way in which we sit. Right? Sit, 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 and now sit hunched over. The second reason, we stop breathing so we don't have to feel. Yeah. So one of the things that we learn in yoga and meditation and any spiritual practice is we learn to belly breathe. We learn to belly breathe. For women, this means you let it all hang out. We learn to belly breathe. So right now I'm going to invite you to notice, are you breathing in your belly? And if not, take a breath. What do you notice about a belly breath? You get more air. Stillness, it's deeper. You feel the release. It takes longer. You actually have to concentrate on it, right? You can't just be while you're busy, right? This is, bar none, statistically proven, the single biggest, number 1 way to reduce stress and anxiety. Breathe. Stop. Breathe. And that means a belly breath. Actually, 3 belly breaths. 3 belly breaths. And of course, a couple of things help this. That is our mindfulness practice. The belly breath brings us into mindfulness. Why? Because, as someone said in the back, you have to concentrate. You have to be mindful of your breathing. Being mindful of your breathing immediately invites mindfulness to what's going on in front of you, to what's happening around you, to what's going on in your head, right? It gets you off the train and into mindfulness. And besides the simple practice of the 3 belly breaths, it is a part of our meditation practice. It's the cornerstone of our meditation practice. And for those of you who meditate with me on a Wednesday night, you know that being classically trained in meditation, the primary practice is to sit and to breathe. And what happens, of course, when we can start with a 1-minute meditation. We can do a 5-minute meditation. It doesn't have to be huge and long. But by focusing on the breath and by building that consistent belly breathing, we actually train ourselves. It's kind of Pavlovian, right? Pavlov's dog. When we train ourselves to belly breathe in our meditation and we couple those two things together, do you see that when you're out in the world and you belly breathe, your whole being immediately goes into that meditative state? Does that make sense to you? Right? So you're actually conditioning your whole body to respond to the belly breath to trigger that state. How do we do that? We practice. We practice it. It's probably outside of the way in which most of us were raised breathing, the way in which many of us breathe today. And so, yeah, it's an act of practice to belly breathe. So this, if you do nothing else, you will reduce your stress and anxiety. We can all reduce our stress and anxiety simply by taking the 3 deep belly breaths. Number 2, focus. What are you focused on? What are you paying attention to? And usually what happens when we're stressed and anxious, the words that come out of our mouth are, I can't stop thinking about it. I can't stop obsessing about it. I can't stop. I can't stop. I can't stop. And that tells us that we are utterly focused on the thing that is causing us stress and anxiety. And so what happens when we focus on the thing that causes us stress and anxiety? More of the same. More of the same. So the breath opens up that moment of space in which we can decide to pay attention to what we're focusing on. And primarily we have to focus on our internal dialogue and our self-talk. Gosh, I'm really exhausted. Man, this is really hard. I just can't do anymore. I don't know what they expect of me. Oh my gosh. On and on and on and on and on, right? And do you see that it is that self-talk that is now not only participating in, but perpetuating the anxiety or the stress that we're feeling? And so our task is to change our focus. What are we going to change our focus to? The mistake that I think people make in this point is that they decide that they have to change their focus to find something positive in the thing they are anxious or stressed about. I do not necessarily think that's helpful. I think what we have to change our focus to is the spiritual truth. Spirit knows how to handle this. There's that within me which knows. There's that within me that is absolutely plugged into all the energy in the universe. I know the spiritual truth, and that spiritual truth is guiding me. Do you see? I'm not trying to pretend that there's something good about the thing that is making me feel anxious or that I'm feeling stressed about. What I'm doing is changing my focus from the outer condition or the inner condition. I'm changing my focus to the spiritual truth. Once again, this discipline is fundamentally trained. We are fundamentally trained in it when we train ourselves in the meditation practice. We learn that we can actually discipline our minds and we can decide what we are going to focus on. So we just had this conversation in our Sunday morning class this morning, and I was sharing. As many of you know, I've been driving back and forth to Fort Worth with my son. He had massive foot surgery due to an accident. He's doing much better. He's still on no weight bearing for another 3 weeks, but we're just about done with Mom having to be over there all the time. And it's an hour drive one way, back and forth. And it's been a lot of work and a lot of sleepless nights. And I've been taking that drive late at night after teaching class here. And oh man, can you hear my anxiety go up? I'm tired, I'm so exhausted, I'm so exhausted, I'm so exhausted. Now I've got to make this drive. Well, you can feel that hole that's going to be immediately, can't you? I'm plugged into the universal energy and I'm absolutely safe. I'm plugged into the universal energy. Spirit is all the energy I need, and I am travel safely no matter where I go. Do you see? Change of focus. That's what's required. Change of focus. And we have the ability to do that. Our mental discipline is no different than any other kind of muscle. The more we use it, the stronger it becomes. And our ability to stop obsessing about the negative thing that's either stressing us out or causing us anxiety, let's obsess about how Spirit supports us, shall we? Let's obsess about using the universal law for good. Let's obsess about how loved and supported we are. We actually absolutely have that capability. And we can develop that muscle. So, breathe. Change your focus. Trust the spiritual truth. Trust the spiritual truth. Well, I don't know how it's going to work out. I just can't figure it out. It's just so overwhelming. The human experience feels so real to me. Do you see, when we do that, we are caught in the very thing that's causing us anxiety or is inducing stress. And so this is why we come to the center. This is why we take classes. This is why we read spiritual books. This is why you watch this at home. This is why we feed ourselves with spiritual information, so that we can trust that when we say, change our focus to a spiritual truth, it's actually true. We can actually trust that what we say to be true is true, that there is a universal power and presence that we can rely on. That we can rely on things to work out. That we can trust that the universe has our back and is on our side. Rather than assuming that everything's going to go to hell in a handbasket, whatever it is we're about ready to do, right? Whether it's give the presentation or, make the dinner for all the relatives or whatever it is. Do you see, we become anxious? Why? Because we've decided internally it's not going to work out. Or we don't know how it's going to work out. And if we don't know how it's going to work out, I don't know about you, but I was trained that if I don't know how it's going to work out, the assumption is it's going to be bad. Why not understand that we are so supported by the universe that when we don't know how it's going to work out, we assume it's going to be good. We assume it's going to be good. Now, trust. The pitfall that I find that we do in trust is we say, well, you can't trust other people. What do you mean I have to trust that other person? They have let me down over and over and over again, whoever those people are. Well, those people in my past let me down, so these people in my present are also going to let me down. They're not going to do what they said they're going to do. They're going to drop the ball. They're not going to say yes, whatever it is, right? And you could be correct. When I say trust, my personal experience is it is not about trusting the people in our life. It's not about trusting the boss or the coworker or the spouse or anybody. It is about trusting the spiritual truth. It's about trusting the universe. It's about trusting the divine presence as it is moving through us and as it is unfolding our life. Do you see? It's not about trusting other people because they, like us, make mistakes. We don't always show up as our best self. But the universe, you can count on. Always present. The law, always supporting us. And so to stop placing our trust in others, not that from a psychological and a relationship point of view we aren't building that, but when our anxiety and stress is high, it is the universe that we turn to. It is that infinite power and presence and the recognition of how it works. And that is what we trust. Somehow, it always works out. Somehow I know that good comes of this. Somehow I know Spirit within me knows how to get through this. it knows what to do even if I don't. Do you see? I'm trusting in the philosophy, in the things that I believe about the divine, in the things that I say are true. And now I'm trusting for my iPad to come back on again. No, Siri, I don't want to talk to you. I actually, okay, I'm not getting my, it's not going to come on. Oh well, too bad. See, I trust that the universe knows what to say. All right, number 5, be present. Oh, sorry, thank you. Number 4, be present. See, I trust you to keep me online. If we breathe and change our focus and trust in the universe, one of the things that inevitably happens, or a way in which we can get to those other things, is to try to be present in the moment. One of the most profound questions to ask when we feel stressed or anxious is there anything I can do about it this moment? Why? Because usually my experience is I'm having that experience at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I am not going to call you at 2 o'clock in the morning, you got to do that, blah, 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 right? Or whomever, whatever. Really, there's seldom anything we can do at 2 o'clock in the morning, and the last thing we want to do is send that email. Don't do it. Do not go to the computer, right? Or we are concerned. We don't know how something's going to come out. We have to create something, do something, talk to someone. But if we are not actually in the experience in the moment, do you see we're borrowing all kinds of trouble? We're making it all up in our minds about how it's going to be, about what's going to happen, or about what did happen. That's the other thing. I have fabulous dialogue with people in the shower. The problem is they're not there for me to actually have dialogue with. Well, I don't know how fabulous the dialogue is, actually, to tell you the truth. Probably just as well I can get it all out in the shower and that person isn't there, so that then I can actually have a calm conversation. But do you see, I can completely stress myself out, and that person is not actually even in front of me. So, right, is there anything I can do about it in the moment? 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. Because stress and anxiety, when we're in the moment, we're actually engaged. We don't actually have time to be stressed or anxious, because we're actually engaged with what's going on. And so, to be present with really what is happening in the moment, and as I said, 9 times out of 10, nothing. So our task is to breathe, change our focus, trust the universe, because what we've got going on is really happening in our minds. To be present. And then the reverse is true. If for the 10% of the time you're actually in the middle of the thing that is causing stress and anxiety, being present in the moment is the only way that Spirit can show up for you. It's the only way that Spirit is available to us, because Spirit is only in the eternal here and now. And so by really becoming present to exactly what's going on, do you see that wisdom of the universe, the intelligence of that divine presence, can actually show up as us in this anxious or stressful thing that we are now currently engaged in. Does that make sense to you? Right? So be present. Practice being present with what is. And we try not to borrow trouble from the future or from the past. My personal favorite, not. Number 5, ask for help. Ask for help. Oh, gosh. With our American culture today, great independent thinkers that we are, spiritually sound people, when we ask for help, that means what? We're not doing it right. We don't know what we're doing. Oh, my goodness, we've fallen off the wagon. I don't know. Somebody will know that we're not perfect. We're happy to help them, but we don't think anybody wants to help us. Right? Or whatever the nonsense is that we do. So we want to learn to ask for help. Ask for help physically. Yes. Can you help me do this? Can you support me in this? I need this. Can you teach me something? but also ask for help spiritually. We do not have to walk through our challenging times alone. We have friends, we have practitioners, we have ministers here, we have a whole community of people here that will support us and that will remind us of spiritual truth. Don't ask for help if you don't want to hear it. Because then you're not asking for help, you're asking for sympathy. You're asking for collusion. Somebody to collude with you on how awful it is. Right? Somebody to pat you on the back, say, there, you're a nice person, you don't deserve this. All of which is completely true. But when you're asking for help, spiritual help, you're actually asking for someone to help you refocus, help you be present, help you trust the spiritual truth. And so ask for that help, and let's be available to it then. Let's let somebody move us, right? Let's let somebody talk us into a spiritual point of view instead of insisting on our anxious or stressful, yeah, but don't you know how hard it is? Yeah, but don't you know, I don't know, yeah, but. Do you see? We're asking for help, we're doing this. Help me, no. So if we bring ourselves to the point where we can ask for help, then to allow it to move us. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Yeah. And isn't it so much better to walk up the mountain with other people? Somebody who's been there before us, somebody who's walked the path before us, or is willing to walk side by side. All right, the first 5. There we go. So, how are we doing? Are you breathing? It doesn't feel like anybody's breathing in the room. Are we so anxious and stressed out about being stressed and anxious that we've stopped breathing? Okay, everybody belly breathe. Drop it out of your shoulders. Belly breathe. We can do this. We can do this. We are completely and utterly capable of doing this. These are all the spiritual tools that we have. We don't have to do anything esoteric or fancy. It's bringing our spiritual tools and our spiritual understanding to bear. All right, number 6, one of my favorites, the serenity prayer. Right? The serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. We often, I find, I shall speak for myself. You can ride in on my coattails if you choose. Often I find that when I'm stressed or anxious, I would like for somebody else to do it differently than they're doing it, because they are causing me stress and anxiety. If they could just get it together, I would feel so much better. Right? How often do we do that? Spouse, work, coworker, boss, whomever it is, politician, life in general. It's not about changing other people. It is about the courage to look within, do our own work, allowing other people to be who they are, the courage to speak our truth to them if it's necessary, to say that's not okay, or I need this from you, right? We have to have courage to say or do, the courage to actually change our focus, to be in the present moment, and the wisdom to know the difference. Yeah. To recognize, for me, that life is a dance. It's a dance that we're doing with the divine. And sometimes I'm leading, and sometimes life is leading. And when I'm leading, I need a lot of courage. And when life is leading, I often need a lot of acceptance and surrender. And that's the dance that we do. When we are not accepting of the way things are, do you see, we're focused on needing them to be different. We need them to be different. We need somebody else to be different than they are. This is the fundamental cause of suffering. And that suffering is our anxiety and our stress. We need it to be different than it is. But it is what it is right now. This does not mean it can't be different as we do our spiritual work. But in the moment, do you see, this is what it is. And that's that being present part and letting it be what it is. And then having the courage to move in the direction that we want to go, or to see what we need to see, or focus on what we want to focus on. Yeah. And serenity is right up there with lack of stress and lack of anxiety, isn't it? To experience that serenity. So our serenity prayer is a powerful, powerful tool. Number 7. This one I'm going to tattoo on the inside of my eyelids. Take breaks. Take breaks. Take a break from at work. My good friend Sherry Wood, she says, Petra, get up out of that chair every hour. But I like being focused for 6 hours at a time. I'm working, and then at the end of 6 hours, oh gosh, my whole body's stressed out, right? I don't know how you do it. That tends to be how I do it. Take breaks, little mini breaks throughout the day, breaks during the week, breaks, vacation. Okay, so I have a strong opinion about this, you guys. As if that's a big surprise. You must take your vacation. Okay? Really. The world can get on without you. But I have these things I have to do. Oh my God, what will they do without me? They will survive. They will survive. It's stunning to me how many of us only get 2 weeks vacation and don't even barely take that. I had a dear friend of mine years ago, we were talking, and that person she'd never taken 5 days together in a row. And when I asked her to take 10 days, she was like, oh my God, her head blew off. I had a previous partner, I said, I'm going to take 3 weeks off. She burst into tears. Literally could not bend her mind around 3 weeks of vacation. Breaks. We need breaks. In Europe, they take 6 weeks vacation. Everybody gets it. 6 weeks. Everybody gets it. Because we are more productive when we've taken breaks. We all know this. And the more we push in the long, and it's too long and it's too late, every study has shown our productivity diminishes. Till it's not much of anything. Take breaks. Set your alarm on your phone. Something. Stand up. Go to the restroom. It's so funny. I used to hang out with the smokers, and do you know why? Because every so often they'd go outside. And I'd go with them. Even though I didn't smoke after I was 21. But I would go out with them because they took breaks. Now, I'd like to take a break without killing myself, right? Without putting poison into my body. That would be good. Oh, man. So I would just ask you to reflect for a moment to yourself. What keeps you from taking the breaks you need? What keeps you from taking the breaks you need? And if anybody's willing to shout something out, what keeps you from taking the break you need? Myself? Fear of not getting it done in time. Could you say that louder?
Yes, I said the need to be in complete control of everything that goes on, even when I'm not around.
The need to be in complete control of everything that goes on, even when I'm not around. Guilt. Guilt for not doing it? Guilt for taking time for yourself? Okay. Guilt for taking time for yourself.
Putting responsibility and feeling of obligation towards others ahead of the responsibility and obligation towards myself and well-being.
Yeah, putting our obligation and responsibility for others ahead of ourselves, our responsibility and obligation for ourselves. Because what? We were taught it's selfish, right? You'll lose your job. Fear of breaking my momentum. Good, right? That's a really interesting thought, isn't it? So how do we take breaks and still keep our momentum going? And yes, and so when we recognize that momentum is primarily in consciousness and not in doingness, that might help us. If we're holding consciousness for our momentum while we're allowing our physicality to take a break, and yet still, even our consciousness needs a break to think about something else. Great. Yeah, okay, I see a hand back there.
Fear that if I spend the money to do something I want, like to go to a gaming convention or on vacation, that I'm not going to have enough money to pay my bills.
Yeah, right. And of course we do have to budget. I'm not going to have enough money to pay my bills. And so we do have to budget. And so we find inexpensive ways to do that. So last night I took a break. I don't know how many of you saw it on Facebook. I went and I bought myself a little painting evening. I painted up here in Addison a little picture for 2 hours. I took a complete break, and it was reasonably inexpensive, and it was fun, and I felt refreshed afterwards. So what are some of the ways in which we can take a break? Besides getting up from our desk, we can walk around. We can go to the park, we can visit a friend, I don't know about you, but my gosh, you can certainly watch things on movies, unless you're a habitual TV watcher, then that's not going to be a break. That's just more distraction. So, let's ask this question. Ha-ha! What's the difference between a break and distraction? Bingo. A break, you're plugged in, and distraction, you're escaping. Right? Feed yourself. Feed yourself. Feed yourself. Do things that feed you. And again, we're going to be running up against all that selfish, why am I spending that money on myself or that time on myself? And yet it's necessary if you actually want to contribute to your home life or your work life. If we're exhausted and stressed out and anxious, we're barely making it, we're probably a little hard to be around. I don't know, maybe you're not. I am, so I don't want to affirm that for you, but right? And so truly taking a break is a plug-in to something that feeds us. Nature, culture, art, friendship, physical activity, things that feed us. Right? This is one of the reasons why I travel. I give so much to this community. I work so many hours. Traveling is one of the things that really feeds me in a completely different way. I love to go to museums. I love to go to these little painting things that just they tell you what to do, and then you do it. And then afterwards you go, well, there you go. That'll go in the trash, but that's okay. Right? Because we're not doing it to accomplish anything. I'm not becoming anxious or stressed out about the quality of my art. It's a break to feed me. Do you see? Do you see what I'm saying? Right? So we don't feed ourselves by having more things that will cause us to be anxious and stressed. We feed ourselves by doing things that really nurture our soul and our heart and our bodies. So taking a break is not escaping in the long run. Surely, occasionally, an escapist break is fine. I'm not, I love to go to a good movie. Can't wait to see some of the ones that are out right now. I love to read a good novel. Good trashy sci-fi is my favorite. It's complete escapism. But you can't, but not all the time. Little bits of escapism's not bad, but it's not a true break. It's not a true break because a true break feeds us. And what feeds us more than the people and the things that we love? Our pets, our friends, our family, mostly, Some of them maybe. Anyway. Nature, beauty. So when we take breaks and we feed ourselves, we're also being with those things that we love. And interestingly enough, remember a couple weeks ago we talked about, maybe this wasn't on a Sunday, maybe this was in a class. We talked about somewhere in the last month where the love that we experience with the people and animals in our life isn't actually the love they're giving us. It's actually the love that we're giving out, that we feel. You think about that experience, experiment with that in your life. So we're not being with pets and animals for what they can give to us. We're being with them because they elicit from us something. And this eliciting is not a giving yourself away. It's not a martyred, I got to do more, I got to be more, I got to give more, I got to, help more. It's not any of that. It's that elicited experience of simply opening one's heart and the joy that comes with being in that person's presence, that child, that pet. And this is one of these deeply counterintuitive things about spirituality. What feeds us, what lifts us, what changes everything is not what we get. It's what we give. And it's so easy to hear that as more of the giving ourselves away, which causes us not to take care of ourselves. Do you see? This is a spiritual giving. This is a spiritual being. It's not a doing. If I feel like I'm loving someone and it's just more doing, I might be adding more stress. So that's not what we're talking about. But to be in that space of love, man, to really allow ourselves to be filled up. As I said, I spent the last 4 weeks caring for my son. He's 26. He's a boy. He loves to play video games. And thank God for the Olympics, so we didn't have to watch all the kill, death things. And while it was stressful to be present with someone in that much pain, do you see? All of that's overcome by the love. If we simply plug into that love. It's not about doing. It's about being that presence. And finally, number 10, are you ready? Here we go. Breathe. Breathe. Beginning, middle, and end. The single most important thing that we can do is breathe. Breathe in your heart. Breathe in your belly. Breathe into the center. So I'm going to invite you to just close your eyes for a moment. And just take a breath all the way down into your center. And take another breath. That breath is the breath of life itself. That breath is the nurturing breath of the divine. That breath comes from the heartbeat of the universe, breathing in and out, in and out. That breath is always available. In every single moment, that breath is right here, right now, available. And it is the joy and delight of the universe to breathe itself into us It is our joy and delight to not only receive that breath, but to breathe it out into our own lives as peace, as presence, as poise, as calm, as serenity. Truly, the love of the divine presence is always as close as our breath. So we breathe into the heart. We breathe into the belly. And we let it be. And so it is.
There's one thing that I know for sure. This stuff really works. I know that if you apply these principles and put them to use in your life will not ever be the same. It'll be more grand and glorious than you can ever imagine. How do I know that? Because thanks to people like you given to a community over 10 years ago, I got to walk in and find these spiritual principles and put them to use in my life. And now I get to share these principles with you. So I ask you to give to CSLDallas. Give to our purpose and our mission here, that we are radically inclusive, we're spiritually progressive, and we transform lives. And I know that what you heard today, when you put it to use in your life, it'll absolutely transform your life. When we're touched by this impulse of transformation and we give from that impulse comes back to us 1,000-fold. And we keep building and growing and expanding and touching the consciousness of humanity itself. And we're bringing love, purpose to this. So I invite you to go to CSLDallas.org and give. Or you can text, like I like to do. And you can do that easily by texting 972-954-4404. Set it up once, and then you text from that point on. It's easy to do. Thanks for being a part of our community. Thank you for helping us to expand our mission and purpose. And thank you for being the love impulse that humanity is awakening to in every moment.